It's amazing how a single phone call can change the course of your life. A simple buzz, a vibration, and suddenly you're standing at the edge of something new and unknown. My name is Anna Nguyen. I'm Vietnamese-Australian, and today I want to share the story of my very first job interview in English. For me, it wasn't just a test of language. It was a test of courage, identity, and self-belief. I still remember that moment with surprising clarity. I was sitting in my small apartment in Sydney, scrolling through job ads, feeling both hopeful and doubtful. Would anyone want to hire me? My English was good, but not perfect. My accent sometimes tangled my tongue. Still, I sent out applications. Careful, tailored, each one a little piece of myself. It was late afternoon when my phone buzzed, vibrating across the table. For a split second, I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something inside me urged me to answer. "Hello, this is Anna." A warm but businesslike voice responded. "Hi, Anna. We've reviewed your application. Are you available for an interview this Thursday at 10 a.m.? I felt my heart stop and race at the same time. My mind scrambled for words. "Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. As soon as I hung up, reality set in. I had just agreed to my first job interview in English. The excitement faded, replaced by a wave of panic. What if I didn't understand the questions? What if I stuttered or mispronounced something? What if I blanked and couldn't find the words? My thoughts spiraled, each one heavier than the last. I spent that night searching the internet for interview tips. I watched videos, read articles, even scrolled through discussion forums. I discovered that the strengths and weaknesses question was a classic. I practiced answers in front of the mirror, trying to look confident, rehearsing my smile. I recorded myself, listening over and over. My accent wasn't perfect, but the more I listened, the more I realized. It was my voice. It was honest. It was me. The days leading up to the interview were a blur. My family offered advice. My mom told me to remember my roots. My little brother joked that I should just be myself, but fancier. I tried to sleep, but my mind replayed imaginary conversations. I visualized myself walking into the office, sitting down, answering every question with poise. Thursday morning arrived. The sun was shining, but my stomach was a knot. I put on my best outfit, a crisp white blouse and navy skirt. I checked my appearance in the mirror. I reminded myself to sit up straight and breathe. I whispered quietly, "You can do this, Anna." The commute to the office felt longer than usual. Every red light was a chance for my nerves to grow. When I finally arrived, the building looked tall and intimidating, but I walked inside, repeating my mantra, "You can do this." At reception, a friendly woman greeted me. "Hi, Anna. Please take a seat. Rachel will be with you soon." I sat down, smoothing my skirt, willing my hands to stop trembling. The waiting room was bright, sunlight streaming through wide windows, potted plants lining the walls. I watched people pass by, busy and confident, and wondered if I'd ever feel like one of them. Then a woman approached. She was tall, with kind eyes and a professional manner. "Anna, I'm Rachel. Nice to meet you." We shook hands, and she led me to a small meeting room. The table was polished, and I could see my reflection in its surface. I sat down, took a breath, and tried to anchor myself in the moment. Rachel began with a smile. "Tell me a bit about yourself." I answered slowly, choosing my words with care. "I'm Anna Nguyen. I grew up in Vietnam, but I've lived in Sydney for a few years now. I studied business at university, and I'm passionate about helping people solve problems." She nodded, then continued, "Why do you want this job?" I explained, as honestly as I could, that I wanted to grow, to learn, to contribute. I talked about my interest in the company and how I admired their values. She asked, "Can you describe a time you solved a problem?" I thought for a second, then described a group project from university, how I navigated language barriers and helped my team communicate better. I spoke slowly, using simple English, making sure each word counted. I smiled, even when I wasn't sure if my answer was perfect. Rachel listened carefully. Her questions were fair, but they required me to think on my feet. I remembered to breathe, to pause when I needed a moment. I reminded myself that it was okay to be nervous, Then, she asked a question I hadn't prepared for. What makes you different from other candidates? For a moment, I was silent. My mind raced. How do you sum up your whole story in just a few words? I looked at Rachel and decided to speak from the heart. I wasn't born here, I began. I had to learn the language, the culture, and how to adapt. That makes me strong. That makes me brave. I don't give up easily, and I'm ready to learn anything you throw at me. Rachel's expression softened. She nodded, and I felt a small surge of pride. I had answered honestly. I had shown her who I was. The interview ended with a handshake and a polite, "We'll be in touch." As I left the building, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I had done it. No matter the outcome, I had faced my fear. The next day, I refreshed my inbox every hour. Each time, my heart would leap when a new email appeared, only to drop when it was a newsletter or a promotion. And then, in the late afternoon, I saw it. "Dear Anna, we're happy to offer you the position." I stared at the words, barely believing they were real. I let out a laugh, then a sob. I called my mom. She cried too. We celebrated with homemade pho and laughter that night. That job was more than a paycheck. It was the first step toward building a new life in a new country. It taught me that even though I was afraid, I could still act. Even though my English wasn't perfect, my voice still mattered. Looking back, I realized that everyone is scared at some point, especially when trying something new, especially in a language that isn't your own. If you're listening to this and you're afraid to speak English, I want you to know, I understand. I was too, but your voice deserves to be heard. You may make mistakes. That's okay. Every mistake is a lesson. Every lesson is progress. The only way to improve is to try, to practice, to keep going, even when you're nervous or embarrassed. One day, you'll walk out of a job interview, maybe not perfect, but proud. You'll know you did your best. You'll know that you're stronger than you think. So, if you're preparing for your first job interview in English, here's what I learned. First, preparation makes a huge difference. Practice common questions out loud. You don't need to memorize perfect answers. Focus on sharing your story, your experiences, and your motivation. Use simple, clear language. What matters most is communication, not complexity. Second, don't be afraid of your accent or your mistakes. Your accent is part of who you are. It tells a story of your background, your family, your journey. Mistakes are not signs of weakness, they're signs of learning. No one expects perfection. Third, remember that interviews are two-way conversations. You're not just being tested, you're also seeing if the company is right for you. Ask questions about the team, the culture, the role. Show curiosity and enthusiasm. Fourth, be honest about your journey. When Rachel asked me what made me different, I could have tried to give a textbook answer. Instead, I shared my truth, and that made all the difference. Employers value authenticity and resilience. Finally, don't let fear hold you back. It's normal to be scared. The first step is always the hardest, but it's also the most important. Every time you push through your fear, you become braver. You discover what you're capable of. After that first job, my confidence grew. I learned new skills, made friends from all over the world, and slowly, Sydney began to feel like home. My English improved, not just because of classes and textbooks, but because I used it every day in real conversations with real people. There were still moments of doubt. Sometimes I'd stumble over a word or misunderstand someone. But each time I reminded myself, progress, not perfection. Every conversation was practice. Every mistake was a stepping stone. Now, when I meet someone who's nervous about speaking English, I tell them, you're not alone. Everyone starts somewhere. Your first job interview, your first meeting, your first presentation, they're all scary. But they're also opportunities to grow. If you're listening to this, maybe you're at the beginning of your journey. Maybe you're about to apply for your first job, or you're waiting for that call. Maybe you're worried about your accent, your grammar, your vocabulary. I want you to know your story matters. Your dreams are valid, and you have what it takes. Take small steps. Practice every day, even if it's just talking to yourself in the mirror. Record your answers, listen, and notice your progress. Find people who encourage you. Celebrate your victories, no matter how small. One day, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. You'll remember the fear, but you'll also remember the courage it took to try, and you'll inspire others to do the same. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever been scared to use your voice in English or in any language, I want to encourage you. Comment below with your biggest fear in English, and let's overcome it together. You're not alone in this journey. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit the like button. Subscribe for more daily English listening practice. Share this with a friend who's also learning English. Sometimes, all we need is a little encouragement from someone who's been there. Remember, every voice deserves to be heard, yours included. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to take that next step, to walk into your own interview, your own new beginning, with courage and hope. No matter where you're from, no matter how strong your accent, you belong. See you in the next story. And until then, keep speaking, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. Because one day you'll walk out of a job interview, head high, heart proud, and say, "I did it."